My husband betrayed me with my own sister, right in this house. They thought I didn't know. But I've known for a long time, and I was just waiting for the day to make them pay in front of everyone. I once thought that betrayal was something that only existed in movies or far-off stories. I was proud to have a happy family, an exemplary husband, and a sister as close as my shadow. But it turns out, tragedy doesn't choose its victims. It can knock on anyone's door, even those smiling contentedly in their illusion of perfection. I am Sophia Bennett, 30 years old, living in the suburbs of New York. My husband, Michael, 35, is a senior manager at a financial company. We met when I had just graduated college and quickly became the ideal couple in the eyes of our friends. Michael wasn't just handsome and intelligent, he was also incredibly charming in his demeanor. He knew how to make me feel like the only woman in the world. Then there's Olivia, my sister, 3 years older than me. She's the strong, independent, experienced type. After a failed marriage with her ex-husband, she moved back near our parents' house. But then, when she faced financial and emotional struggles, I, out of instinct, invited her to live with us for a while to find some relief. I still vividly remember the day Olivia moved into our home. Michael smiled, helped pull her suitcase, while I meticulously prepared her room. At that moment, I felt lucky to have an understanding husband who was willing to help his sister-in-law. If someone had told me that, on that very day, I had unwittingly brought the third party into my marriage, I would have laughed and thought they were playing a cruel joke. But the truth is always harsher than any prank. At first, everything seemed calm. Olivia became more cheerful, and we often cooked together, watched movies. Michael was also very enthusiastic, occasionally inviting her to go shopping or fixing small things around the house for her. I was touched, thinking my husband was truly kind, until I started noticing things that weren't right. The first time was when I found a button from Michael's shirt in the living room, one afternoon when I came home earlier than usual. When I asked, he just laughed and said it probably fell off while he was watching TV. I believed him. The second time was when I heard their muffled laughter in the kitchen, when I pretended to be asleep. When I came downstairs, they fell silent, and Olivia quickly made an excuse about joking over some TV show. Then one evening, I noticed a strange perfume on Michael's shirt, not the one I use, but one that was very familiar. It was the exact scent Olivia loved. Those small details were like cracks in the wall of my trust. But I kept trying to reassure myself that I was overthinking. Until I caught the way Michael looked at Olivia, the same look he used to give me in the early days of our love. That was the moment I knew something was no longer right. I'm not an impulsive person. I understood that, without evidence, any confrontation would be meaningless. Worse, it would make me look paranoid in their eyes. So, I chose to stay silent. But my silence didn't mean I was resigned. I went online and bought a set of hidden mini cameras, the kind that connect directly to my phone. I installed one in the corner of the living room, another near the hallway leading to Olivia's bedroom. I knew my schedule and theirs, and I knew when to check the cameras without drawing attention. After just 3 days, I had what I needed. Footage of Michael and Olivia sitting close on the sofa, his hand resting on her thigh in a suggestive way. The looks they exchanged were no longer those of family members. And then, they kissed, right in the place where I used to sit with them every weekend evening. I felt like my entire world collapsed. My heart tightened, my hands trembled as I stared at the phone screen. But no tears fell. I don't know if it was because the pain was too much to cry, or because, in that moment, a part of me died, the naive part that trusted the people I loved most absolutely. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in my life, I clearly felt what it meant to be the clear-headed betrayed. I couldn't forgive, but I also couldn't act recklessly. I started documenting everything. Every time they sneaked around, every time they thought I didn't know, I saved the evidence. I bought a small recording device, carefully placed in the living room, where they often had their private conversations. Once, I heard Olivia say, "Do you think Sophia suspects anything?" Michael smirked. "She's too naive. She hasn't noticed anything in all these years, so why worry now?" I laughed. A bitter laugh. They had no idea that the fool they were talking about had already planned to end this in a way they'd never expect. I lived in that house for 3 more weeks, with a calm smile and eyes that observed every detail. I remained the dutiful wife, the kind sister, at least in the eyes of those 2 traitors. They had no clue that every move, every sneaky glance, was fully in my grasp. Every night when Michael hugged me to sleep, I wondered, how could he pretend so well? How could a man turn his back on the wife who built this home with him, only to fall into the arms of her own sister, and Olivia? The sister who held my hand as a child, who promised to always protect me from harm. Now, she was the one delivering the most fatal blow. I couldn't let this end with cheap apologies or crocodile tears. I needed an ending they'd remember for life. And the golden opportunity came when Michael mentioned our 5th wedding anniversary. I was thinking, maybe we could throw a small party? Invite both families and a few close friends to celebrate. What do you think? Michael smiled, his eyes full of excitement. I nodded, hiding my emotions behind the familiar mask. Great idea. I'll take care of everything. Olivia, sitting nearby, chimed in, her voice cheerful as if she'd never done anything wrong. I'll help you prepare. I'm free anyway. I turned to look at her, a faint smile on my lips, thinking to myself, yes, you should stay until that day to witness your own downfall firsthand. I spent the next week preparing the party, but not in the way Michael and Olivia imagined. I didn't care about fresh flowers or a fancy menu. What I focused on was the projection system and arranging everything so everyone could clearly see the large screen in the venue. I booked a familiar restaurant with a private banquet room, spacious enough for nearly 50 guests. I told the manager I wanted to surprise my husband with a commemorative video. They were fully supportive and helped me set up the best projection system. I spent 2 nights editing all the evidence into a 5-minute clip. Every frame, every recording was carefully arranged, not too brutal, but enough for anyone to understand what was happening. This wasn't just a video. It was a verdict for 2 betrayers. The day came faster than I expected. I wore an elegant white dress, not to celebrate love, but to mark the day I buried this deceitful marriage. Michael held my hand as we entered the venue, Olivia following close behind, cheerfully greeting everyone as if she were the most innocent and beloved person in the world. I observed every familiar face, my parents, Michael's parents, our friends, his colleagues. People who still thought I was living in a real-life fairy tale. The party went on like any other. Wine, toasts, handshakes, and polite smiles. Until the lights dimmed, and I stepped onto the small stage, holding the microphone, feeling my heartbeat slow and steady. Not out of fear, but because I knew this moment would change everything. Thank you all for coming today to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. I've prepared a surprise gift for Michael and for Olivia too. I pressed the remote. The large screen behind me lit up. At first, familiar images appeared, our wedding, our honeymoon, everyday moments. The room clapped, smiling. But then, the screen changed. A secretly recorded video from our living room. Michael and Olivia sitting close, their eyes full of affection. A stolen kiss. An overly intimate embrace. Murmurs instantly filled the room. Next came the audio. Olivia's voice rang out clearly. I don't think Sophia will ever find out. And Michael's responding laugh, cold and dismissive. The atmosphere in the room froze. Every shocked, disgusted, and disappointed gaze turned toward the 2 people now petrified at the main table. My mother covered her mouth, tears welling up. My father stood abruptly, his face red with anger. Michael's parents went pale, speechless. Michael finally snapped out of it, standing up, his voice stammering. Sophia. I can explain. Olivia, her face ashen, tears falling, didn't dare utter a word. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. No need for explanations. Everyone has seen it clearly. I stepped off the stage, walking past where Michael and Olivia stood like statues. Congratulations to you both. From now on, no one can stop you from being together. Because I'm officially setting you both free. I left the venue, leaving behind chaos and endless whispers. As I stepped outside, the night sky felt unusually cool. For the first time in months, I felt I could breathe freely. I didn't look back. I didn't need to know what Michael and Olivia would say or do to salvage their last scraps of dignity. For me, the party was the end of it all. When I returned to the house, the home that was once my haven, I didn't go inside right away. I stood at the door, looking up at the familiar windows that suddenly felt foreign. This was once the place where I placed all my trust, where I dreamed of a happy family. Now, it was just a shell of betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I packed my things, only what truly belonged to me, personal documents, a few clothes, and the wedding ring, which I left on the table as a final message. The next morning, I left before Michael could return. The first thing I did was meet a lawyer. I had prepared everything in advance, the divorce papers, evidence of the affair, and a plan to claim my rightful share. My lawyer, a strong, sharp woman, looked at me with a mix of admiration and sympathy. You did well, Sophia. Now it's time for the law to speak. News of my special anniversary party spread through family and friends overnight. I received countless messages, from words of encouragement and support to outrage on my behalf. Michael called relentlessly. I didn't bother answering. His texts were full of apologies, claiming it was just a moment of weakness, that he still loved me. Olivia wasn't much better. She sent me long, rambling messages, begging for forgiveness, saying she didn't know it would go this far, that the feelings were just fleeting. Fleeting? I gave a bitter smile as I read that. A few weeks later, I heard Olivia had been disowned by our parents. My mother, always forgiving toward us sisters, this time stood firm in her refusal to forgive. My father declared he never wanted to see her again. Michael was suspended from his job. Apparently, an affair with his sister-in-law wasn't just a family matter. It severely damaged his reputation in the financial world he worked in. I heard Olivia left the city, unable to handle the public pressure. Michael moved in temporarily with a friend. And me? I moved to a smaller, but far more peaceful apartment. No more corners reminding me of betrayal. No more sleepless nights filled with suspicion. I started spending time on myself, something I'd forgotten to do while trying to please others. One afternoon, while reading in my favorite cafe, I caught the gaze of a stranger. He smiled at me, a genuine, unforced smile. I nodded back, realizing in my heart, life still has so many beautiful things waiting for me. I didn't rush into a new relationship. I understood that, before loving someone else, I needed to love myself first. 3 months later, the divorce hearing was swift. Michael couldn't deny anything with all the evidence presented. I secured my share of the assets, and more importantly, my freedom. After the hearing, Michael tried to approach me one last time. He stood outside the courthouse, looking more haggard than ever. Sophia, I know I was wrong. I've truly lost everything. I looked straight into the eyes of the man I once loved, once trusted completely. No, Michael, you didn't lose everything. You only lost what you never cherished. I turned and walked away, my heart as light as if a 1,000-pound burden had been lifted. My new life wasn't always easy. Some days, I still felt bitter thinking back on everything. But gradually, I learned to let go. I realized that the sweetest revenge wasn't making them suffer, but living better than they ever expected. I started building my own career, opening a small interior design shop, a passion I neglected while being the perfect wife. I traveled, met new people, and most importantly, I rediscovered myself, a Sophia who was strong, independent, and no longer afraid of any pain. A year after that fateful day, I received an invitation. It was for the wedding of Olivia and Michael. I laughed when I saw their names printed on the pristine white card. Not because I still cared, but because I knew the two betrayers had finally ended up together, not out of love, but because no one else would accept them. I tore the invitation and tossed it in the trash, feeling nothing. Because now, I was truly free. If someone asked me, what made you so strong? I would answer, betrayal taught me how to stand up. And I chose not to fall. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about a woman who dared to face the truth, dared to expose the wrongdoers, and most importantly, dared to love herself after all the wreckage. I am Sophia Bennett. I was once betrayed by the two people I loved most. But I turned that pain into strength to write the next chapter of my life. And I know, I've never been happier.